Dear Apple, I think you should what? This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from MacVoices. Watch or listen to MacVoices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is MacVoices Live. We do this every Tuesday night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's what we're doing. And we are now exclusively on YouTube. But there is a link over on Facebook. If you go to the page or the chat, you should see the notice about tonight's show and be able to click and come here, or where we all are, over on YouTube. So we hope you will join us in the chat room. I want to definitely say hello to the chat room. There are already people in there that we all know and love showing up. That's great to have you guys. And we have an exciting panel tonight, a lot of people here to express their thoughts and interests. And so I've admonished them to keep their comments brief. What do you think the chances are? Anyway, so I'm going to go around the room and introduce who's here, and then we'll take it from there. And I think I'm going to switch it. No, I'm going to try to keep the same order, but I don't think it'll work. So anyway, first up, going as my screen is at the moment, Mr. Guy Serle. Guy,
hey,
welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
It's good to be here, and you keep inviting me. So,
I know.
Probably against your better judgment.
Did you buy any mics this week?
No, but I do have a new mic actuator from Clark called the CM2, and it's dual. You can put two mics through it, kind of like a cloud lifter, like the dual cloud lifter.
We will look forward to your
half the cost.
Okay, good. David Ginsburg is here against his better judgment. David, good to have you.
It is good judgments, and I got a new car today, so I wanted to go play with it, but I came back and wanted to be here with you guys. So.
Ooh,
what'd you get?
Yeah,
got a 2018 Dodge Charger with CarPlay. Ooh.
Nice.
Wow.
And when I turned CarPlay on for the first time, I got like Kelly. It's like it's hot.
Is it warm in here?
Yeah. Oh, David will be at the drag strip next weekend, just waiting for you to cheer him on. Kelly Guimont is here. Kelly, welcome. Good to have you.
Also, again, against your better judgment, you just keep not changing the Zoom link. So here I am.
Yeah,
you find it anyway.
I'm a masochist. What can I tell you? For his first time, I think, not necessarily, but it's sort of in this format, Mr. Ken Ray has joined us. Ken, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Chuck. Good to be here. I think I did this once before, but it's been a while.
Yeah, and I think at that time we were still doing featured guests instead of just a panel. And so welcome to the panel. You are welcome here anytime. All you have to do is sign in.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Brittany Smith is beside him. Brittany, good to have you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, on your furry microphone tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we just went to an R rating. I'm not sure. Speaking of an R rating, Mr. Jeff Gamet is here. Jeff, welcome.
Totally appropriate transition. And I'd like to point out that you keep letting us back every single week, but you do have the ability to not let us into the group. So you could just leave us sitting there, and maybe eventually we get the message that maybe we shouldn't dial in.
Well, what happens is each week it takes me a while to recover, and by the time the next Tuesday rolls around, I've blocked the previous week out of my mind and I forget. So
is it like childbirth that way?
Yeah,
yes,
I appreciate that. You know, it's a survival skill. That makes sense.
PTSD.
Yeah, exactly. Frank Petrie has joined us. Frank, I'm glad you were able to make it.
I'm not even sure I'm here.
Okay. Well, that'll cut down on your comments.
Yeah, the 60s were really good for us.
I was just wondering. Yeah, they were. Well, you remember the old line. If you can remember the 60s, then you weren't there.
Yeah, then you weren't there.
Jay Miller is back again for another dose. Jay, welcome.
This is the weirdest panel of like Hollywood Squares I've ever seen. I guess that makes me Whoopi, though. I don't know if I like that.
I'm Paul Lynn.
No, Whoopi's really cool, so that's okay.
Hey, Kelly's Paul Lynn. And Jim is Charlie Weaver.
Moving on.
Can I be Betty White?
Oh man.
Sure.
Warren Sklar has joined us again. Thank you for coming, Warren. Nothing on TV tonight?
My week opened up a little bit, so here I am. I was supposed to travel to Chicago tomorrow, but there's rioting, so we canceled the trip. I was going to visit Dave out there. But last minute, we decided to be safer. So I got more time, so here I am.
Rioting is a very good reason to cancel a trip. Yeah. Last but absolutely not least, Mr. Jim Ray. Jim, welcome.
Hello from California, the home of the famous Pacific and ArcLight theaters.
Oh, we were just talking about that.
Yes, when I got on, I'm like, are they talking about the theater that's right down the road from me?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's no longer.
Yeah, and if you want to hear those comments, you have to be a Patreon subscriber, and you will receive the MacVoices After Dark feed. That's serious. That's not a funny thing, where you can hear all about the comments about the ArcLight. So,
And Mexican food.
Okay, but it started
And
life as
Mexican
a
food.
funny thing, and then it turned into reality. Just for the record, that was just
That's true. That's true. So tonight's topic, I've been wanting to do this for a while, and it seemed like the news kept catching up with us. And then Apple kind of did it again to us today because they announced the event for next week. But it seems like everybody's doing speculation shows. And so tonight, this could be a speculation. It could be more of an opinion thing. But I ask everybody to think about, if they were going to write a letter to the board of directors or to Tim Cook and say, "Dear Apple, I think you should. What should Apple do?" And so the floor is wide open to whatever anybody wants to think Apple should do. And I'm going to give Ken first shot since he hasn't been here with this panel before, and put him on the spot. Ken, what do you think Apple should do in whatever category you want to tell them?
See, I'm going to be horribly pedantic and start with there's nothing Apple should do because they're the most valuable company on the planet and they're fine. My immediate thought when you sent this, though, was it's going to be the thing that is most near and dear to people's hearts. So as a podcaster for 15 plus years, I would like for Apple to talk to a podcaster about podcasting. Somebody who's like, you, Adam, Mark Maron is fine. Because he does a thing that's not, we're going to hire 10 people and, produce something that's really NPR or just doing NPR, like that kind of thing. Now, I made that really short. Can I say what the other one that I want them to do?
Sure, but I like the way your first one went.
Okay, well then we can come back to it if you want to. I would like for them to spin a happier yarn for the future, and that's both everything on Apple TV Plus, and I'm a huge believer in Apple TV Plus. I think Mythic Quest is a great show. I think Ted Lasso is an amazing show. Everything about the future on Apple TV Plus is depressing. For All Mankind is we lost the space race and now we're fighting on the moon and all that stuff. And in fairness, I stopped watching halfway through the first season because it kind of was a bummer.
Win in the end.
Say again?
We win in the end. It gets
doesn't
better.
surprise me. But I mean, I have an idea. How about making Tomorrowland? How about making something that shows a promising future, considering you're the company that keeps handing people iPads and iPhones and all that stuff. C is kind of a dark future. Foundation, I'm very excited about, but things kind of go poorly for humanity. It wouldn't kill them, I don't think, to do like a maybe more upbeat, maybe a little Star Trek, maybe a little Orville, maybe something like that. And also, I'd like to see some of that outside of Apple TV Plus too. I was thinking about the Day of Glass that Corning did a few years ago. And granted, their job is to sell glass. And so they see the future as full of glass. And I don't know who they think is going to sell it to us. Maybe we'll find out someday. But if Apple did I would love to see sort of like a spinning a positive future that doesn't say, here is where we're going, like here is where Apple as a company is going, but here's where we could all go. As opposed to the standard, you're watching an Apple event and there's a runner and then they check their watch and then they keep running. That's apparently the future. And yeah, it'd be neat to see something more, what's the word I'm looking for? Aspirational. And that's it. You can shut me off now because that's what I had.
No, I mean, I like it. When I put this together, I seriously didn't know if somebody would focus on a product or a service or what. And I like those kind of those are two kind of broad brushstroke things that aren't specific but are more, like you say, aspirational and directional. So
yeah. And they're not doing poorly. I mean, every time Tim Cook comes out and has to talk about some horrible legislation that's coming out, or comes out and has to talk about somebody else getting shot, or I mean, he is good at addressing a lot of the ills as they happen, and Apple, I think, is good at addressing a lot of the ills, and they have a great message as far as green energy and things like that, but it would be great to put it in a 4-minute video. And I don't want it to be simple for me. I want it to be simple for everyone and to be aspirational for everybody. I want it to be something that you can point at, because when you say we've reduced our carbon footprint by this much, and we're trying to get the supply chain to come along, and I've already fallen asleep just telling you about it. And it would be neat to have, do Disney's World of Tomorrow, or, those kinds of things. Do the kind of thing that everybody can get behind and say, that's a neat vision for the future. And bring the whole inclusivity thing that Apple does very well in its talking points to the general market, to the mass market, to a place where we can all see it, as opposed to it being, well, here's something that Lisa Jackson said, and now, let's go watch TV. I mean, no, give me both. I mean, let's try both. And like I say, in a Star Trek Orville, kind of way.
I like that first topic of, in a few minutes, Tim Cook spins the wheel of stuff.
Nice. Okay. If he wants to come on and do that, I'd be fine with that. I'd be more than happy with that. Or if he wants to come on and talk about the weather, I'd be fine with that too.
I want to find out though, like you said, you want Apple to talk to a podcaster, but I want to know what the second half of that sentence is, so that Apple builds better tools for producing podcasts, so that Apple understands what the business model actually looks like, so that Apple can what out of that conversation.
Yeah, you see, that's kind of the problem. I mean, because then I think about it, it's why I sort of started off by saying I think the thing that people are going to be most interested in is the thing that they're most interested in. Like, I complained on some show recently, it might have been when I was doing the live thing, I don't know. If you want to develop an app, Apple has a great way for you to sell that. You want to write a book, Apple has a great way for you to sell that. You want to host a podcast, Apple will put you in a pile with 2 million other podcasts. Oh, you're from NPR. Come right this way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, there have been things. Dave Hamilton and I discussed a few weeks ago on In a Few Minutes. He thinks that one of the greatest things that Apple has done in the past 15 years is get into podcasting. I kind of think they actually stopped the burgeoning market when they did that, because it went to iTunes. Everybody went to iTunes. That killed iPodRx. That killed Podcast Alley. That killed a number of other things that were out there that were actually starting to grow as businesses. And Apple, sort of said, great, now we've got podcasts. And everybody else was like, well, darn. And kind of walked away.
But at the same time, you needed something like that to make podcasting grow. If you have to go to multiple different sites and aggregators to get all of your podcasts, you're missing out on a lot of content. And what iTunes did was give everyone a single place to go to for practically every single podcast that was out there.
Yeah, and now you're one of 2 million, and I still can't find anything that would be great.
All right, I'm talking about when it first started.
Okay, when it first started and there were 50, that's a different proposition. Just like the App Store, just like everything else. Like Apple gets to a certain point where the success for everybody becomes like not a lot of success for anybody unless you're Mark Maron, unless you're NPR, unless you're
that was going to happen anyway.
But discoverability with apps too. Like, I can see Minecraft on the front page of the App Store all the live long day, but if I don't play games, I don't care. Show me an app that lets me, check the box when I'm done with the thing. Show me a game I wouldn't have heard about otherwise. Like some of that kind of stuff. Like the discoverability is the problem that Apple has.
Yeah.
Like
you just
every
need better
direction
search
if we
tools.
just go, if they get successful enough. So
then you need better filters and better search tools. But honestly, looking at the history of podcasting, you can compare it to the history of radio, to the history of television, to the history of any mass marketing content that goes out there. It goes out there, it starts to get popular, and then pretty soon you've got 1 to 4 of the big boys, especially before cable got involved, that pretty much have the market sewn up. And that was going to happen with podcasting, just like it happened in every other medium. As soon as there was the potential for making money, then the big boys come out and they pretty much gather all the toys together and say, okay, if you want to play in this sandbox, you have to use our toys.
Today's edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by the Mac Voices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter. The Mac Voices Dispatch has been reformatted and redesigned to make finding the most recent Mac Voices news easier, as well as being able to watch our programs, either video or audio, within your email client. Visit macvoices.com/newsletter today, sign up, and stay up to date.
Apple spent 10 years not trying to make money on it. Apple not only spent 10 years not trying to make money on it, but not trying to help anybody else make money on it either. In the meantime, you did have things like the stuff that Adam Curry was doing. You did have things like the stuff that iPod X was doing. I mean, you did have people that were trying to grow a business there. Apple then said, hey, that's neat. We're going to put that in here, and then we're going to sit on it for a very long time. It was Serial. It was NPR or PRI finally hitting something with Serial, and then going to Apple and saying, listen, you got to give us something here. That suddenly Apple remembered, oh yeah, we do have a podcast area. Now, this is not to knock the people who are working on podcasts for Apple. I have never spoken to any of them, but I hear great things.
We've heard they exist.
Well, no, I've heard. I mean, there was a guy from a few years ago. I know he's no longer with them, but I used to hear people talk about him and say he was a wonderful guy, and I'm sure he is. And I'm not knocking anybody who's on the podcast team. I don't even know necessarily what it is that I want. I do know that 2 years ago, we heard that Apple was going to get interested in podcasting, but they never said exactly what that was. And look, there's almost nobody. I mean, the number of people who are off by themselves making a living in podcasting is small. I mean, it's a small number. And so I understand why they don't necessarily think of them first. But it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to talk to somebody who, remembers when Apple added podcasting, as opposed to somebody who works for, some VC funded something that heard that podcasting's good. So they're going to try that this year and see how it goes.
Well, remember that the whole time they weren't making money directly from podcasting. They were making a lot of money selling iPods. And they were making a lot of money starting in 2007 selling phones that could get podcasts.
Sure.
And that was their main focus for supporting podcasts was to sell you stuff, not necessarily selling you podcasts, but to sell you the devices that you could use to listen to podcasts.
I would debate your use of the term support. I would debate your term of the use supporting podcasts. I mean, playing podcasts is different than supporting podcasts.
Enabling people to hear them is different. Yeah.
I have an idea. Let's go back to the part where they make Tomorrowland.
Yeah. Before we leave this, Jay had an interesting point in chat, and I'd like you to bring that up, because I think I tend to agree with you because of what's happening with Spotify right now. But it's your point. Go ahead.
Oh, well, okay. My point was Apple tends to not do things until it's a solved issue, until it's a solved thing. And I think that that's something that they did when they jumped into podcasts. What they thought they were doing was, hey, we see what the future of internet radio is going to be. It is podcasting. Let's create this directory so that when people think of internet radio, they think of Apple. And then a bunch of podcasters that were not yet podcasters said, oh, wait, this is a new burgeoning market. We can change this. We can make it so now that every single TV show that Netflix puts out, every single TV show that Hulu, that Apple, that anyone wants to put out now has an accompanying podcast that we now have to promote. We now have to think about how marketing and advertising works around it. We have to think about all of these different things that changed what we thought was a solved issue. Get on the mic, talk to your audience, throw an ad or two in there, and we're good to go. I think Apple is waiting. I think with wherever podcasting is going to go, I think they learned the last time that like we thought it was this obvious. Obviously, it's not. Right now, Clubhouse is a thing people may or may not be talking about. Right now, NFTs are a thing people may or may not be talking about. Every YouTuber that I follow has a podcast. Every podcaster I know is talking about getting onto YouTube. Right now, it is a very confusing industry and market, and I think that Apple is sitting there saying, let's stay out of this a little while longer until the people making the content figure out what it is that they want to do for the next decade. And then we'll come in with this big announcement that'll have all of the true Apple diehards saying Apple is reinventing podcasting. And then all the people will be like, yeah, but Samsung did that, 3 phones ago. And then, we just start going through the same rinse and repeat arguments that we've had for the last 3 decades.
David, you wanted to get in and then we'll move on to this, but you had something you wanted to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to add about internet radio. Radio in itself has been evolving for years and years. We used to listen to radio on its own, AM, FM, all that. Interesting to see where CBS Radio went. They created radio.com, and then all of a sudden now they have this new one that just came out, Odyssey. I find it interesting to see how these radio companies are starting to react and look at podcasting and look at broadcasting on the radio stations and being able to share radio stations. They were so restrictive of how you could listen to their content. Now all of a sudden they're doing it more and more and doing it a lot more freely because you had, remember you had to go to TuneIn, you had to go to all these other platforms to be able to listen to what you wanted to listen to on a local radio station, whether it be music or news or whatever. And I thought that it was interesting to see what Entercom, I guess, was the company that came out with the Odyssey and provided that internet radio the way it is now.
Yeah, there have been some attempts, I think, to put podcasts on the radio. Forgive me if I know there was an effort at one time. I don't even know if it ever got off the ground to put it on Sirius XM.
Right.
To generate content that way. So who knows? Jeff, I want to get you in here because I know you have a heart out because you have another commitment tonight, and you're welcome to publicize that commitment. But what do you think Apple should be doing?
I've been thinking about this like really seriously, digging deep inside me, thinking about what it is that I want Apple to do. And I thought, I could toss out something like, wow, I really want them to improve their voice control platform. Or, wow, I'd really love to see them do something amazing new with automation. And every one of these ideas that I've been coming up with, I've been thinking, yeah, that's just part of the process as Apple evolves and refines all these products. And what I kept coming back to, which is very nebulous, is I want Apple to delight me. And I want them to delight me the way they did when Steve Jobs stood on stage and said, "Do you get it?" And we all flipped out. Because that's when we really, really knew what the iPhone was. And the iPhone has, this is not hyperbole. The iPhone changed my life. And I want Apple to do that again. And granted, I know this is the sort of thing that doesn't happen very often. I mean, the original, I'll say the Apple II. When the Apple II came out, that was a life-changing computer. And when the Macintosh came out, for a lot of people, that was life-changing. But to me, that was the progression of the product. And then we just had this long window where Apple was doing different things and coming up with cool ideas and not cool ideas. And then the iPhone happened. So what is the next thing that Apple needs to or can do that will absolutely delight me and change my life in the way that the iPhone did? And I'm actually coming up with nothing. I don't know what it is. But just like the iPhone, when it happens, I'll be like, oh my God, that's actually it right there. My whole world just changed. That's what I want.
So nothing much.
Yeah, nothing much.
Took it out of my
I'm
mouth
not
can,
setting the bar very high.
Yeah. I mean, that was a quantum leap that arguably was more than the Macintosh. And so I have to, I mean, how many times do those kind of products come around? So I agree with you. Jim?
I'm sure Tim will get right on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure Tim hangs on every word I say.
Tim is a products guy in that he puts products together, but he's not a visionary. And there's really not that many people in positions of power in tech that are visionaries in the same way that Steve Jobs was. The big power that Steve Jobs had wasn't the power to say yes, it was the power to say no, to take things out that wasn't going to fit within the scope of whatever kind of product it was they were trying to put out there. Could you imagine if they had tried to cram everything into the original iPhone that they were probably talking about behind the scenes in the engineering labs? We would have had this hellish Frankensteinian device that tried to do everything and did most of it badly.
Well, that's exactly why we didn't get the iPad first, because Apple was working on that. And then as all the parts and features came together, they realized, we should do this as a phone instead. We'll keep working on the tablet idea, but we need to run fast and hard with the smaller form factor phone version.
Yeah, right. but again, that's the problem. Is who in the tech industry is there that's a visionary along those lines? Now, there's nobody.
Okay,
Elon Musk?
No, no.
Sorry.
Ooh,
I was warming up there to disagree with Guy, because we got the watch on Tim Cook's watch, and that's a completely new thing that is different and interesting. Apple Music, like, you can't carry, I mean, you can sort of carry it around in your pocket, but like on its own, it's just a service, which we got from Tim Cook. And we've gotten like the AirPods is a thing that totally came under on Tim Cook's watch. I mean, I don't know necessarily what it is that he could do that would be revolutionary, because I really like the iterations that we're getting now with what, with the stuff that we already had.
The AirPods are basically an evolutionary product. There were Bluetooth in-ear earbuds. Wow, one of those words for a long time, and there were sort of the ideas of the Apple Watch that were out there. Certainly not with the spit and polish that the Apple Watch has. And I would, I don't know what the history of the watch is, but I'm willing to bet that the ideas for that were kicking around certainly while Steve Jobs was still around.
Okay, but we had MP3 players before we got an iPod too. So.
And we had smartphones before we got the iPhone.
But you can take a device like a Nokia 650, which is probably about as close a product to the original iPhone as there ever was, and you can look at that and then put that next to an iPhone, and there will be people that will sit there and say, well, yeah, it's the same idea, but it wasn't the same idea. It was, the iPhone was kind of a convergence of, like Jobs said on stage, it was these three different things that different people and different companies had pieces of. But it was Apple and their engineers that put those three pieces together to create an iPhone. And it was so great and so brilliant that it was immediately copied by every other company that was out there, including Google with Android.
But I'd have to say that Apple basically, and they do this with just about everything, is they use they sit back for about 3 or 4 years when somebody comes out with something, and they listen to everybody, all of us, and we become their R&D because they listen to what we didn't like about the product, what we did like about the product, what we wish was in the product, and then Apple takes that and then they put all that together. Then they start putting their spin on it. That's why then all of a sudden when the iPod came out, everybody went, this is phenomenal, because it answered every thing that everybody wanted or wished that their product did.
They were willing to risk making a $400 product. I mean, when the iPod came out, it was ridiculed. There were, people that were the so-called experts were like, "Oh, this is crazy. No one's going to buy it." But I think the point that Apple, when they make groundbreaking, but their way of making groundbreaking is taking what's out there and then leapfrogging it. There were lots of, they were far from the first MP3. There were definitely phones before and Palms before, and they kind of took the Palm Pilot thing and even the Newton and the phone, and they waited till the time was right. And then they also had the tech was ready, and then they also had the software stack of the next software basically that nobody else had. I mean that's sort of their secret ingredient. Everything they have from the watch on up runs the next software from 1986. That was just sort of a miraculous. If you go back and look at the inventors of Objective-C, and they were talking about software components and how this was going to revolutionize software. Well, it did. And, Apple had that technology that still no one has to this day. And that software, I think, is the key. Plus, then that now they are also the leader in hardware and in, materials. And, so who knows where their, next thing is going to come. But the chances are, whatever the next revolution is that Jeff's looking for, there's already something out there that's
close.
That is going to be what the template is for that. And
and when it happens, just like the iPhone announcement, I'll be like, holy crap, this is it. I mean, when the iPhone announcement happened, I'm sitting there at the keynote, and there was a guy from one of the major news agencies sitting beside me, and he kind of latched onto me because he'd never been to a Macworld before. And he says, as everyone like freaks out in the room, he says, I don't understand what just happened. And I said, Apple just made the BlackBerry in your hand obsolete. Right. And he looks at me like, huh? And then it hit him and he realized what had just happened. And when it happens again, for me, it'll be the same sort of thing where I see whatever it is that Apple does, and I'll realize, okay, this thing, whatever it is, this is now obsolete. Even if everyone else doesn't realize it yet, Apple just made this whole thing obsolete, and this is the new world right here.
I do think that when the iPhone came out, there were a lot of phones, and everybody hated them. I hated my phone. I'd been using phones for 15 years, and every phone I had was terrible. And I had MP3 players before the iPad Pod, and they were terrible. And there were watches before the Apple Watch, and they were terrible. So
but they were good at telling time.
No, I'm talking about smartwatches. I'm talking about smartwatches.
Yeah,
they were terrible at sending text messages though with your voice.
They didn't fill the need, So people were there like, oh, we can build a smartwatch, but they built awful ones. So each place Apple jumped in and basically built a good product, and charged for that. And I think the other players, one thing was they were like, oh, nobody's going to pay for a product that's actually good. And Apple has the guts or whatever to say, you know what, we're going to actually make a good product no matter what the price is. And And then it turns out, yeah, people really want that good product, and they're willing to pay a lot of money for it.
I want to get you in, and then I want to bring the chat room in. Go ahead.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say was when you were talking earlier about Tim Cook, whether he's a product guy or whatever, listen to him talk about AR. I mean, we don't know what that's going to be. We don't know what that's going to look like, but Tim Cook does. And I don't think he came up with the idea. I think he's seen something, and he may have only seen it in a, kinematic or on paper or whatever, but it's not going to be holding your phone up in front of something else. He talks about AR as if it's a foregone conclusion. I think he knows what that's going to be, and I think he's behind it. Whether that's going to be the thing that delights, because the other thing that I was wondering about with what Jeff said, and I don't want to be like, we've seen it all or it's all been done or anything like that, but there is computing all around us at this point. And what Apple does is computing. And so have we come to a place now where even if it is incredible, like I think the AR glasses will be incredible, but what they're going to do is they're still going to put your calendar right here. They're still going to put information right here that we used to, have in our phone, that we used to have to go to the library for before that, or go to our laptops before that. We had to go to the library, whatever. I mean, it's just bringing information like closer to us, and it'll still be revolutionary, I think, in the way it's presented. But have we gotten to a point now where computing is so pervasive that even like something more ambient or closer to us, it's just more computing, it's just more data? I mean, I'm not saying we're done, but are we done? Or are we now just looking at form factors?
I'll give you a yes and no on that.
Okay.
I mean, you're right. Just this whole computing thing, it permeates our entire lives to the point where we don't even think about so much of what we're actually experiencing. Excuse me, from that computing standpoint. So giving us something that just continues to build on that and makes our day-to-day, every moment computing experience more natural and seamless. Okay, that's a nice evolution of the whole process. Where I see that becoming a revolutionary thing is when Apple finds a completely new way to present that to us. And you mentioned AR, so I'll go ahead and toss it out there. What if they're looking way beyond AR and they're looking Ready Player One? I mean, that would be a completely revolutionary thing, giving us a whole completely immersive virtual reality environment. Holodeck, if you want, but at this point it would be more like Ready Player One, because you need to have a suit and something else to make it feel real. But I mean, is it something like that? I don't know.
Well, but you're talking about something like Snow Crash, or some of the earlier cyberpunk novels that had this completely artificial reality that you would log into for work or recreation. And I think that was kind of tried with Second Life, and it got part of the way there, but the technology was early days too. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I want to make sure the chat room has been talking about different things. First of all, we have one vote for Tim Cook as being really awesome.
I never said he wasn't awesome. I just he's not Steve Jobs. Nobody is at this point.
Right. Paul in the chat room nominated the watch with diabetes monitor would be a game changer for him. And Cletus agreed with that for his mother. And I agree, and I think Brittany was the one that picked health last week as one of the big Apple advantages. And I think that's going to continue that trend as the watch gets better, the sensors get better, the technology gets better. So, yeah.
I mean, look at all the stuff that you can do with your phone that you couldn't do with the first one or the second one or the third one, even.
Or even 2-3 generations back.
Yeah, like Touch ID, Face ID, Apple Pay.
Yeah.
Well, all of those things before you even get to anything else.
with the phone, is there anything that we see on other phones that we wish that came to the iPhone? And that's what I ask myself: is there any other technology out there that somebody's not doing well that Apple could do well? And VR is one thing because obviously there's the Oculus and they're doing it, and it's okay. But I'm sure Apple's going to do it better. But is there anything a Samsung phone could do that, or Android that I really want to have on my device? I can't think of much.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Viruses.
Hey, Jeff, I know you got to bail. You want to tell everybody where you're headed?
Oh, sure. I'm off to talk with the Mac and Tech Mac user group here in Colorado, and we'll be talking about online privacy and online data tracking and how to protect yourself.
Great. Well, hey, thanks for being here. Please give everybody at Mac and Tech our best, and tell them that on another Tuesday night to come on over here and hang out.
Sounds good. And big hugs to everyone here. Sorry I can't hang out for the rest of the show. See you later.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye, Jeff.
Night, Jeff.
That wraps up this first part of this Mac Voices Live discussion. Ordinarily, I would give you a quick preview of what's coming, but I really don't want to do that because the ideas and the thoughts ranged from the 30,000-foot level right down to the individual, I personally want this level. And so I think it's best that you hear from each individual and what their ideas are. And each one generated lots of conversation back and forth between the panel members. So join us next time for more Dear Apple, I Think You Should on Mac Voices. As always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.